Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I'm thrilled, honored, humbled, and grateful to have with me today, David Donlan. David is a phenomenal businessman, public speaker, advisor, and lecturer. He is currently the CRO at Crayon, and as a sales leader, he's been responsible for developing the go-to sales and marketing strategies for mid-market enterprise companies globally. Prior to Crayon, he joined HubSpot as an early employee and helped grow the company from 100 customers to more than 15,000 customers, and ultimately a massive IPO. I know I'm excited to hear and learn everything that he did along the way to make that happen. David's had sales leadership positions at prominent marketing and media firms throughout startup to acquisition, including the Aberdeen Group, which was acquired by Harte Hanks, the Boston Herald, Bitpipe, HubSpot, you name it. David, this is going to be a lot of fun today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brandon. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, so this is awesome because at Seamless, I'm trying to build the exact same thing that HubSpot did for the SMB and mid-market, but really excited to dive into your experience at HubSpot, Aberdeen, you name it, Crayon, and the audience is dying to know two things. Number one, what is your top sales secret? If you had to go back in time to when you first started in sales, what is that number one top sales secret? But before that, I know the audience loves to learn about, who is David Donlan? Where'd you come from? How'd you get started in sales? And what are the top secrets, learnings, takeaways that you've had at each of these awesome places that you've worked throughout your sales career? And then that will take us up to the top sales secrets. So without further ado, David, I'd love to just hear about, who you are, where you came from, and more about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely, Brandon. Thank you very much. And again, honored to be here on your podcast. So just a little bit about why sales and why I came from sales. My whole family has been in sales. My father, who's 73 years young, he's still a wealth manager, cold calling people, asking people to invest money in him. My mom, she was in sales, and she 73 years young. Yeah, still cranking away. He'll be still cold calling. Yeah, it hasn't changed. My mom, she's been in sales her entire career, since her days at Mr. Donut when she was 15 years old selling donuts to she started the first ever women's magazine called Women's Business Boston, which she actually sold a long time ago. So she's always been a very dominant sales person in my career. So I come from that background. But the thing about sales is it's the one role where if you don't have the skills yet, you can make it up with passion, with energy, with just great attitude. I think of like certain sports today. There's certain sports you could have great energy, great attitude, be physically fit, but if you don't have the skills, you're just not gonna make it. But sales is the only career out there where if you are extremely passionate about your product, you love who you sell and what you sell, and you love the people you sell to, if you don't have the greatest sales skills in the world, you can make it up with passion. And that's one thing I've always loved about sales. And I love working with passionate salespeople, whether they're the top smartest salespeople I've ever met, much, much smarter than me, or sales reps that are on their way up, that I find if you have passion in it, you can be extremely, extremely successful.
That's awesome, man. That's great. That is that's incredible. I love that sales secret. You got to have that passion, that consistent belief in what you have to sell and what you have to offer. It's cool too that you my background, I came from a family that did sales, so it's pretty cool. Like your whole family, that's what they did, and then you decided to do it. And Bitpipe, so you start off your career selling for what? Bitpipe or the Boston Herald?
I worked for a company called Sayers. We were it was founded by Gale Sayers, for those who know football, Hall of Fame running back in the 60s for the Chicago Bears. But it started as a value-added reseller, reselling Dell, EMC, IBM. So I've always been in tech sales. Started out as a BDR, pounding the phone, setting up meetings for the top sales reps. Went on to Bitpipe as my first account executive role. Didn't stay long because the company got acquired by TechTarget really quickly. So learned what it felt like to go through an acquisition. Being in Boston, always loved media. That was the time where actually newspapers were actually red hot, believe it or not, in the early 2000s.
At Bitpipe, by the way. So TechTarget, how do I know that name? Is it like an old Intel company, like an intelligence solution or something?
And TechTarget was really good at, they're still around today. They do a lot of content syndication. They provide a lot of content for marketers to help with lead generation. So they're a content syndication platform. They're actually based in Needham, Massachusetts. They IPO'd, I think, in 2006, 2007 on the NASDAQ. So they're a publicly traded company. And that was one of the first companies that I was part of an acquisition with.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So what was the biggest thing that, I know you were only there for a short period of time, but like, what was the biggest thing you learned there?
The biggest thing I learned is to take chances and just jump in with 2 feet. So from someone who was selling, not really selling yet, more as a BDR, and had the opportunity to get their first closing role with no real formal training or anything. I just learned to be fearless and not be afraid to ask hard questions. You know, again, having the passion about knowing what product inside and out, knowing about who I was selling to. I just had a lot of fun doing it. I wasn't afraid to ask hard questions. wasn't afraid to close. And the fact that they gave me the autonomy to just jump in 2 feet and go do it was probably one of the best experiences that I had at such a, you know, early career, being 22, 23 years old.
Awesome. So just do it. Just make the calls. I know you were doing a ton of outbound calling and appointment setting and pitching, right? So the newspaper industry was starting to blow up, right? Tell us a little bit
actually,
how you were thinking about making the switch from Bitpipe to women's business.
Well, so what happened was my mom sold her newspaper. It was actually a magazine to Herald Media, which at the time was a very big media outlet. Actually, in New England, they've owned, I think they owned roughly about 100 different newspapers and magazines in all of New England. So I came on board the Herald. It was just an open opportunity to get into media and try it for a year, which I had a lot of fun doing. Actually, it was one of the most fun I ever had in any job working in the media industry.
That's awesome. And you know, you were doing director of advertising, so selling what, ad space in the magazine, right, or the newspaper?
Yeah, selling ad space in the magazine and in the newspaper, really understanding how that business worked, working with PR agencies, understanding the difference between selling direct and then selling through the agencies. Did a little bit in Herald Interactive where we were selling on the website. That was just starting to take off, believe it or not. That was something that no one ever even heard of. So we were just dabbling a little bit of that. But one thing I loved about working at the Herald is I learned about the importance of a network. Networking in the media business meant that I was on the road every day in New England, networking with everybody. And it didn't matter that I was 24, 25 years old. Yeah, it didn't matter if I was 24, 25 years old. I'd walk up to the CEO of company XYZ, or one time I went to a charity event and I'd walk right up to Bob Kraft and, you know, the owner of the Patriots, and just shake his hand and tell him he needs to advertise with us. So that was just a great experience to be able to do that.
What did he say to you pitching Bob Kraft?
He gets, I'm sure he got a lot of people coming up to him randomly pitching, but he shook my hand and said good luck. So, but I had that experience where I could just go to events and do that. So
were you nervous pitching Bob Kraft, you know, like right in front of you, or no?
It was at the time they just won their second Super Bowl. So the only thing I was nervous about was the bling that I saw. He had some serious bling with the Super Bowl rings, which I thought was pretty amazing. But you know, he was a person just like anybody else, no different than talking to you, Brandon, or talking to you know, a new account executive here at Crayon. So I always tell people that you should not be afraid to just go up to people and shake their hand and introduce yourself and tell them, you know, why they should be listening to you, or why you should be listening to them. So
yeah, people are people, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, okay. So then, you're crushing the media, and biggest takeaway is to just go to these events and hustle. Like, what was the biggest secret that you had from that at the Boston Herald?
The biggest was the networking. I never experienced the ability to network. I was networking, if not 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week. I was out of the office every night at a charity event or at some other big opening or something like that. And I was always networking because everybody in the room, wherever I went, everybody in the room was a potential customer. And I knew if they weren't going to be a customer today, they were going to get my business card. I was going to get their business card. They were going to put me in touch with someone who could be a customer down the road. So my goal was to make sure at every event that everybody knew my name, everyone knew where I worked, everyone knew that I wanted to listen to what they were doing, what their challenges were. But that was my goal going to every event. And being in a local market at the time, that was a great experience to really appreciate, but also understand how important a network is when you're getting into sales.
That's amazing, man. Dude, that stuff is so hard to do too, to like maintain your health. Like when you're going all like eating and drinking a lot. I've been traveling on the road for a month, and it's like, dude, it's so tough to just keep your regimen and keep your shit together.
Well, I'll let you in a little secret, Brandon, and I still do this today, and I actually instruct all my sales reps to this day. So whenever you go to an event, whether it's a networking event or a trade show or a conference, in fact, I wrote a blog article about this because I've been to 9 different Dreamforces at Salesforce, is the easiest way to meet people is in the line for the cocktail. So when it's cocktail hour, beer and wine, whatever, the easiest way to meet people is to wait in line. So what you do is you wait in line, you meet a few people, shake hands, get to know everybody. And then when you get to the front of the line, you get your beer. And then what you do is you take a quick sip of your beer and then you pour it out and then you go back to the end of the line. And so,
that's a great secret.
Yeah. So this way you will, it's very easy to network if you're new to networking, total strangers face to face, but you don't get drunk. And it's actually a great experience. So you might go through 4 or 5 beers, but you're only going to take a little swig and you'll throw it in the trash and you go back in line and, pick up 4 or 5 new names in your Rolodex. So it's a great experience.
Alcoholic. They're like, hey, there's David again. He keeps looping back in and out of line. I love it. I love it. That's amazing. Okay. So then you joined the Aberdeen Group, and, I know Harte Hanks, because they're a customer of ours. I know they acquired the Aberdeen Group. Like, tell us a little bit about going from media, online media or, hard media to research, because Aberdeen Group is all about like market research, right? Almost like CEB and those types of companies.
Yeah, and like the Herald and like Bitpipe, it was still marketing. So I was selling to actually the same persona, the chief marketing officer, VP of marketing, director of marketing. So the sales pitch was to the same buyer persona, which I was very comfortable selling to. What was different about the Aberdeen Group was it was more of field sales. We sold to big logos. Our target was the Global Technology 2000, and we only had they only allowed you to have 40 accounts in your name. So your quota would be 1 million or 1.2 million, and you had to get 1 million or 1.2 million dollars a year or revenue from your 40 accounts. So you didn't take no for an answer, Brandon. This was a job where you had to find ways to get money out of every account in your patch, or else you wouldn't make your number. And if an account wasn't going to spend money with you for that year, you had to go after the other 39 accounts, but figure out how to get that account to spend with you next year. Because there was no account 41. It was 40 accounts, and that's all they handed to you. So I learned a lot about working big enterprise companies and understanding about how to navigate 10 to 15 job roles within a big enterprise company. Learned a great deal about the procurement, legal process, and what that's like on getting a new vendor approved. And I had a lot of fun there as well. I mean, it was a blast. I worked with some great people. I'm still friends with a lot of those folks today. But really understanding the research aspect and how that affects marketers today, even today, was a very interesting and a lot of fun experience for me.
Yeah. What's the trick to managing selling to these like massive accounts? Like when you've only got 40 accounts and you know 2 of them aren't going to buy anything, you don't know how to generate revenue with the other 38. Like what's the secret to doing that?
Land and expand. Just get your foot in the door. That's it. You get your foot in the door, you underpromise and overprove. You get in and you service, and you overservice. And you really need to understand your customer, not just the company, but you need to understand the job role. So if I am selling to, say, FedEx, and I'm working, 15 job roles that could buy my capability or whatever project or product I'm offering, and one decides to take a chance on me, I got to make sure I truly understand that person and what's important to them and how I can overachieve and exceed their expectations so I can make them look good in the organization. So it was all about really navigating people within companies. And I wouldn't look at like I had 40 accounts. I would actually look at it that I had 400 accounts because each account had 10 job roles or more that could buy something from me. So instead of looking at that at 40 accounts, I actually looked at it at 400 accounts. And once I got one to say yes and I got in, then I do everything I could to make them an advocate to help me land and expand within that account so I could grow the business with them.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So land and improve and expand, I think you said. Like the trick is like get in, prove, under promise, over prove, and build those relationships. And then you could, I assume, just start creating like the case studies for what you have to sell for the Aberdeen Group at these different divisions within marketing.
Yeah, actually, it's one of my bosses at Aberdeen. He gave me a great tip. I think it was like my second month in. I closed my first deal in the first 35, 40 days. And then I was trying to get into new accounts. And he just said, Dave, when you close your first deal, that's now your case study. So every time you go in, drop names, drop company names, people names, title. Where were they before Aberdeen? Where are they during the project? Where were they after the project? Just start name dropping and using and build your own case studies. I love marketing and customer success, but don't rely on that. Salespeople need to build their own customer case studies. They need to understand their customers better than anybody else. That's why sales gets paid the most, because we have to work the hardest, but we also have the most stress. So I've always relied on myself to build my own case studies, my own customer success stories, and also ensure that my customers were always successful. I always put that onus on myself, and I feel like a little bit of software sales today has gotten a little bit away from that, where they close deals and throw it over to account manager, which is fine. But there's something to be said about really working the relationship and growing that relationship within, especially if you're working with an enterprise company.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I love that. And, so then you have an opportunity to join, this small, fast growing startup called HubSpot, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I loved about HubSpot was really a couple things. First of all, I love the team. I always tell every, entrepreneur or sales exec or someone who aspires to be in sales, the first thing you need to look at is the team. You can have an amazing team and an okay product and they'll figure it out. You can have an awesome product and a terrible team and you're going to be lined up for failure. So from day one, I totally loved the team, very smart, but didn't act as if like they were the smartest people in the room. They actually wanted to hire people smarter than them so they could grow and scale a great big company. So the team was the first thing that really drew me to HubSpot.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then how many employees were there when you joined them in 2009?
So there was 20 employees. I joined them in 2008. I believe it was August 8th of 2008 when I officially joined them. And they had 20 employees roughly around then. We were in I guess you could call it an incubator in Cambridge. So just a couple of small rooms.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And everybody was selling. Everybody was selling. It wasn't that, hey, these are sales and these are managers and these are this. Everybody was selling. It was get as many customers as fast as you can, as many as you can. Let's get to over the first hump and get to our first 1,000 customers. And then once we got to the first 1,000, we learned about the importance of a sales process, customer success, how to build a customer success organization, how to build a community of happy customers and teach them how to get tremendous value of what we were offering. So But the first 6 months there was, hey, how can we get to 1,000 customers as soon as freaking possible? And that was fun.
Dude, that's incredible. So 20 employees. When you joined, do you remember like how much revenue they were doing? Like right when you joined?
I don't. I have it written down, but I don't know the exact number of how much revenue. We were so focused on customers at that time. When I started, we had one product. It was $250 a month. Yep. And we were bringing in probably 50 new customers a month. I'm not going to tell you how many we were churning out right away, but it was pretty big. But it was $250 a month, get them on a credit card. And we were all saying, hey, how do we get to the first 1,000?
Or probably month to month or month to month.
Yeah, back then it was month to month. We didn't move until the annual model, and we didn't move into a much bigger tiered structured pricing or sales model until a couple of years later. But the first year I was there, it was take as many deals down as you can at $250 a month.
Got it. So $250 a month. You're selling the inbound marketing software, right?
Yep.
Were you the first salesperson or no? I forget.
No, there was about, when I started, I think there was about seven salespeople. So again, very, very small crew. I don't think any of those folks I think only a couple of those folks are still there out of that crew. But when I started, there was there was about 7 or 8 salespeople. And then as we started hiring 5, 10 new sales reps a month, that's where the opportunity came to take on a leadership role and become a sales manager there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you started almost as like, what, were you an AE or an SDR there?
AE.
AE.
We didn't have SDRs till probably about a year and a half till after I started. So everybody was doing the whole sales cycle from soups and nuts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, did you guys, when you started, so you started, there's roughly, I think you said 7 of you guys. Did you get a lot of inbound leads or no? It was like outbound prospecting in 2008.
Surprisingly, we got a ton of inbound leads. We were the first, HubSpot was just the first to market to put out content. I remember our chief marketing officer, Mike Volpe, put out a webinar on how to get leads from Facebook. And, in 2008, that was unheard of to put out free information. There were consultants out there charging a ton of money, how to use LinkedIn, how to use Facebook. And we put out a webinar that was completely free, and it said how to generate leads with Facebook. And it drew 10,000 people. It drew 10,000 leads. Maybe not that many the first time, but it drew thousands of leads. So HubSpot was one of the first that I've ever seen where we would just give away free information that would help you generate leads or grow your business with your website. And because of that, even in the early stages, being first to market, we used to just get tons of leads pouring in. So outbound wasn't necessarily something we had to do early stage at HubSpot.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys have 7 salespeople, and because this is like a really badass case study that like everyone's dying to just understand and analyze. How do you go from 7 to where that the company's at today? So that first year that you were there, like what was the biggest thing to maximize growth, and then going into the company more maturing? So from 20 people, like what were some of the biggest things that the team did or that you did and the sales team did to scale the growth?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing we did was generate a ton of leads, hire a lot of people, train them, and then just sell. Once we got to about 1,000 customers and we thought everything was great, we looked at our churn numbers and they weren't so great. And we believed, and I still believe to this day, the churn, wasn't on the shoulders of the CSMs. It really should have been on the shoulders of sales. If expectations are not set properly, companies or folks will churn. So what we then started to do is we started to say, okay, well, if we're going to be a big company and just create tremendous value for our customers, where do we need to change? So we just changed our sales process. So rather than get as many people on the phone and demo and take the credit card over the phone, we get people on the phone and we'd ask them questions. And we just ask them questions about their business, questions about their lead gen capabilities, questions about their marketing, their sales. Are they happy where sales is? Why aren't they happy with sales? Are they not happy with leads? Why is that? And every call we called it the IMA, the inbound marketing assessment. Every call was a discovery call. And the top reps would never demo the platform until they went through a very thoughtful, deep discovery process. The reps who, yeah.
No, keep going. Sorry, I love it.
Yeah. The reps who still made it, but were crawling and fighting and whatever, were the ones who were showing up and throwing up the demo. So if you were a rep and you were hitting 200% of your number and you were making it look easy, it was because you were really putting in thoughtful time in the discovery call. But if you were coming in every month at 80% and just crawling to get that last deal at the end of the month, it was because you were showing up and throwing up. So we started to really invest, and the managers did a great job working with the managers, and the directors did a great job. And we just invested a ton of time to build a sales process. And then really just once that sales process rolled out, held every sales rep to every stage or step in the sales process so we could just make it completely repeatable.
I love that. I love it. So the IMA, would you guys do that in one call? Like, so you get someone to agree to an appointment. So you're saying those top reps, they would do the IMA on that call and then the demo on that call. Was it?
No, they would do 3 calls. They do a connect call. Yeah. So connect call, IMA, and then the demo. And if the connect call and the IMA went really well, we would get the credit card information on that demo. As we grew, it was more like signature and invoice, but the sales cycle would actually feel much faster going through that 3-step process.
Yep. Got it. And then the churn was probably high because you had month to month.
Yeah. And having, moving from month to month to annual definitely helped. But you can still have people cancel after a year. I think, other than some things that we did in the product to make it sticky, sales really, took responsibility in churn. And it wasn't just a leadership thing, a management thing. Everyone in sales really said, you know what, if we're going to build a great big company, we can't have churn. And since sales was always the first line, we just looked at it as kind of a badge of honor to put people through a very good sales process. And because we put people through a sales process where they came out, they would literally have a playbook on how to use HubSpot to make them successful. And once they followed that playbook and were successful, they didn't want to cancel. They wanted to tell their friends and family that they were using it. They wanted to be a case study. They became very HubSpot-y. But it started with sales. I mean, there was a ton of other things we did in terms of the product to make it stickier and what the marketing did and the HubSpot community. But we knew if we were going to survive and build this amazing, awesome company, everyone in sales needed to follow a sound sales process and just kind of stick to their guns there.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, makes sense. Makes sense. And then, gosh, 3 calls. I feel like 3 calls for 250 is a lot, though. Was it a lot? I mean, that's a lot.
It is. I mean, again, early on, it does, early on, I mean, there was a couple times where I closed 8 people in one day, literally just on the call. Hey, pick up a WebEx, let's just do it. But then they cancel. But I found that reps were hitting 200, 250% of their month when they were going through them. Now, all those deals might have came in the last week of the month or the first week of the following month. But those customers were happy. And then kind of going back to what I mentioned about my experience at the Herald, those customers also reciprocated their happiness. So what was very interesting about HubSpot that reminded me of kind of like the Herald is in Boston, we all know each other. It's a small community. But when it came to HubSpot, I could sell HubSpot to someone in, Austin, Texas. And then all of a sudden, I might get 3 new leads from that person who bought it. Not because they're just getting a great experience from HubSpot, but they got such a great experience in the sales process. So we saw this really exciting kind of revolution. And I don't want to say evolution, it was revolution. It happened really fast, where people were just coming to us now and saying, hey, I heard about this inbound marketing thing. I want to learn more. So putting people through a sound sales process, I found they really loved the salespeople. They respected the salespeople. And because of that, they were actually dropping us referrals all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, it probably makes, like you said, the cross-selling, the upselling, increasing even pricing in the future a lot easier. Because you've got that deep relationship. That's awesome. So, the Salesforce story, Salesforce.com, like they're doing month to month. They were selling, anyone they could. Then they ran out of money because they're burning $1 million a month. The recession hit. So then they went to annual. They had to go up market. What were some of the things that from year 1 to year 7 or whatever, you were there for a while. Like, what were some of the evolutions in sales that you could walk people through from startup to kind of IPO?
The first one was, as I mentioned, having a sales process and holding everyone accountable to that sales process. That was the first thing. The second one was innovating. We did experiments up the yin yang. We had BDR experiments. We had new product experiments. We had a channel or value-added reseller experiment that turned out to be, I think today it's like 65% of all of HubSpot's business. We had an international experiment. We had reps who came in.
The channel's like responsible for like 75% of the revenue now.
I'd have to look at their last earnings. I don't know the exact numbers, but I remember it was more than 50% at one time, where the channel was just literally exploding at HubSpot.
Reselling HubSpot, or what?
Agencies reselling HubSpot.
Wow, channel.
Yeah,
that's great. It's funny.
But
a lot of people tell me that to grow Seamless, channel could 10x the growth overnight. I've never done channel.
Yeah.
Anything about it.
It started as an experiment, and Peter Caputa, who's now the CEO of DataBox, had this grand idea of what it looked like. He had this big vision, and through a lot of hard work, he was absolutely right, and it's a big part of the business. But again, HubSpot was really good at inspiring people to just try experiments. We have opened HubSpot International. People came in the office at 4 a.m., calling Europe at 4 a.m. in the office in Cambridge.
That's
what
awesome.
really helped. Yeah. So just what really helped was it was the this culture of it's okay to fail. This culture of failing fast and trying new things. And if you tried it and it worked, the company would stand behind you and fund it. So a lot of the stuff that's very successful today at HubSpot, a lot of these teams, departments, etc., really just started out as an experiment.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. The experiment fast, fail fast. Any other really amazing experiments you guys ran that you remember paying off in dividends?
I think the channel one is obviously huge. The international one was huge because once it took off, then we opened up our Dublin office, and that's where now I think they just opened up an office in Paris. So I think they have 9 other offices overseas. That was fun. I was part of the BDR experiment, which was kind of fun to see if we could do an inbound BDR model. I mean, there were so many. There was some that failed too. So,
what do you mean by the inbound BDR model?
So HubSpot never had BDRs. At the get-go, we didn't have BDRs. Sales reps did the whole sales process. And then we thought, okay, well, would we, if I could take the best sales reps, if the best sales reps are doing 15 demos a month, if I could add 5 more demos, would that increase their yield? So would a BDR help? So we tried an inbound BDR experiment to go and accelerate the number of meetings for the best reps. We also tried an outbound BDR experiment. We call that Spider Monkey. So where, instead of all these inbound leads to follow up on, what about all the leads out there that nobody's following up on? So let's just build a list of companies and leads that people that don't know who HubSpot is, and let's just cold call them, email them, and see if we can build a business out of that. So we did a lot of fun experiments, and it's just a great experience for everybody.
Was the inbound BDR responsible for selling to like the new lead that signed up, or were they responsible for selling other people at the account that may be interested in HubSpot? Like,
the BDR was just set meetings.
Got it. That
was it. So So if you think about it, Brandon, let's say the most you can do is 15 meetings a month. You're the top rep. If you do 15 meetings a month, you're going to close 14 of them. Mm-hmm. And you giving 8 to 8 every day, you can only get 15 meetings a month. Well, what if I add 5 new meetings? Is that if I can pay someone to get you 5 more meetings, that you can do that because you're at your capacity for prospecting, would that yield results? So we try that from an inbound model, and we also try that from an outbound model.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. What was the number one secret to maximizing sales results from 100 customers to over 15,000 customers at HubSpot? Like, if you had to dwindle it down to the one thing that drove the most impact. So if you and I started the next HubSpot, you'd be like, Brandon, let's do this for this type of company. What would it be?
Hiring.
So basically Mark Roberge's sales acceleration formula, like hire the best people, hire a recruiter, get them all kicking ass.
Yeah. Yep. It really comes down to hiring people smarter than you. It's very hard, but hire smart, hire fast, hire well, train them, onboard them. But 50% of it comes from just hiring the best people.
Cool. Yeah. Hire them and then empower them, I guess. Was it hard to hire really smart people and then like empower them to make impact without like micromanaging?
Not necessarily. There was a time at HubSpot, there was this interesting, I don't know who started it, but there was this interesting kind of urban legend that it was harder to get into Harvard and MIT than to get a job at HubSpot. Or no, it was harder to get a job at HubSpot than it was to get into Harvard and MIT. And some people, I don't know who started that, but some people actually believed it. And I remember interviewing people and telling them, look, you'll have a better shot of getting into Harvard or MIT than getting a job here. And people really believed it. And when they got the job, they were already empowered to want to do as much as they could to build this great big company and provide tremendous value to customers. So again, it was one of those things that happened at the top of the funnel. And once we started getting that type of quality candidates in, and they came on board, they were drinking the Kool-Aid. They were doing what we asked them to do, but they were also pushing back with their own ideas on how we could make things better. I mean, just because we had a really good sales process, we always had to go back and innovate on it. And that usually came from the people we hired.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great. So, you guys go to 15,000. It sounds like because of a lot of great hiring, right? And failing fast were some of the top secrets there. When, then you ended up leaving to join like a recruiting company, right? I know you had a few things in between, but, then you left and joined what? Select One? And
I actually joined Select One to be on their advisory board. So I'm actually a strategic advisor for Select One. But when I left HubSpot, I if you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see I did a small stint at another really good startup, really hot right now, Evergage, big personalization platform. They're really doing well. But I ended up going to...
They personalize what? The site experience based on the persona?
Yeah. They do personalization, mostly in, I think, like high retail, e-commerce websites. So really cool company. But I ended up going to Crayon because the CEO of Crayon, Jonah Lopin, I worked with at HubSpot. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to work with another HubSpotter again and build another cool company. So that's why I'm at Crayon now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. And, you guys basically at Crayon, it's a lot of the ad intelligence, right? Like their entire...
So what we do is we do competitive intelligence. And basically where we see a unique opportunity in the market is every company, every person in the company is doing some form of competitive intelligence, whether it's someone in sales or marketing. Somebody is always looking at their competitors. I know they say they don't, but they do. And what companies now do is they spend a tremendous amount of time gathering information on the internet and then trying to figure out, what do I make with this? We built a platform that automates the entire process. Yeah. You give us your competitors, we put it into our platform. We pick up all the signals on the competitors, and whether it's pushing weaknesses on your competitors into Salesforce.com for sales reps to act on the intelligence, or creating analysis and reports on your competitors so you can kind of figure out where the white space is or what are the hot areas to overachieve. We're providing automated, comprehensive and automated intelligence for entire companies.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I actually used it. I mean, we talked about this. I used it when I was selling for Google and IBM Interactive. So like when I was doing all the digital research, I would use all the free and paid tools out there. I'd use HubSpot, Marketing Grader, SpyFu, SEMrush. I'd use everything in digital, Moat, ads to get all the digital. What are they doing in digital marketing? Then I put together a digital audit. Then I would present the digital strategy on why they need to pay us a 7-8 figure retainer to manage their marketing. And I remember using Crayon among the 20 other like digital footprint, like research tools, competitor tools. It's really cool. That's awesome, man. Well, congrats on the new gig. And it sounds really exciting. What's the biggest thing you've learned selling at Crayon? And then I want to go into what is your top sales secret. So curious, just real quick.
Yeah, the one thing that I've learned selling at Crayon is I've taken all the mistakes that I made at HubSpot, and I'm not repeating them. So don't repeat any mistakes. Some of the mistakes, some of the experiments that didn't work at HubSpot. I'm not going to tell all of them. We'll be here all day, and I could probably tell you more of them over a cocktail or something. But
top 2 mistakes.
The top 2 mistakes, I'll give you one. The top one is when interviewing, you have to set proper expectations on what the role entails. When you are a pre-Series A startup and you're hiring for sales, this is not a 9-to-5 job. This is a career. And sometimes you can say that to folks in the interview process, but you really need to document it. You really need to let them know and remind them that this is going to be more than a 9-to-5. This is going to be a career. So I've learned right away that when bringing on folks into a startup, they might have had great success at other companies, but they've also had a lot of resources. Here, I need to document them I need to remind them and document all the resources they don't have. And the fact that they'll always have an executive resource, such as myself or our CEO or CMO to help, but some of the resources that they may have had at their other company, like a BDR or like unlimited inbound leads or something like that, just is not going to happen. So one of the biggest things that I've learned is really setting expectations about what it's like to be at a startup, and then what are the things you're going to get and not, and even have to go as far as document them. So when they do join, they're not surprised or blindsided by some of the things they're used to getting at some of their past companies.
Yeah, that's awesome. Setting the right expectation, hiring them. Makes total writing these down on my phone. That's I always take notes like throughout this. So like I've got my Cliff Notes version. Awesome, man. Well, that's great. Congrats again on the new gig. Now it comes to the end of the episode where we finally are dying to hear sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. David, out of everything you've learned throughout your incredible sales career, what is your top sales secret?
My top sales secret is listening. If you are not a world-class listener, you are not going to make it in sales. In fact, some of the best sales hires were folks that never did sales. They have had careers where they're really, really good at listening. Now, in order to listen, you need to ask questions. So you have to be extremely inquisitive, very curious, and not afraid to ask hard questions. But as I told everybody, if you want to be an amazing sales executive, you got to be able to ask really good questions and just listen. And if you can listen 100% of the time and ask the right questions, get your customers talking 70, 80% of the time, you will feel that the sales process will just go. It's always hard. It's always a grind, but I can't hammer enough on the concept of listening.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I think that, you have to be inquisitive. You have to be curious, not afraid to ask hard questions. I remember early in my sales career, it was really hard for me to ask the questions that I wanted to ask because I was so scared about what people would think or judge me by. But, how do you overcome being afraid to ask the hard questions? Like, what have you seen work well for your sales team and your sales reps?
Yeah, I've always just asked easy questions. You ask the questions that they know the answers to. Where are you located? How many employees do you have? How many in sales? How many in marketing? What's that background behind you? Is that real? Is that real wood behind you? Asking questions and then kind of warming up. Once you get the prospect talking, don't be afraid to ask why. Don't be afraid to say, okay, well, tell me more about that. Depending on the size of the company, sometimes it's okay to say, well, how does that make you feel? I found that the simpler the questions you ask, the better the experience will go for both parties. Something I always tell everybody is if you really want to get good at asking questions, watch Columbo. If you don't know what Columbo is, Google it. But I love watching 1968, 1970, 69, 1970, ABC, Columbo. It's a detective series, and the guy just asks very simple questions. Because he asks so many questions, he builds a case, and he always gets his man at the end of the show when trying to solve the case. But that's really what sales is. You're asking questions leading up to an outcome. Ask really good questions and lead up to the outcome. And the outcome is not just the sale. Sometimes the sale is the beginning. The outcome, it could be watching your customers grow. The outcome could be watching them increase their sales or increase their lead gen, whatever it is. So you're trying to get to some sort of outcome just beyond just getting the signature. But you only get there by asking really good questions and listening.
It's really good. It's really good. Yeah. And I mean, like with what, HubSpot and like the digital agencies and the research, like when I was selling enterprise sales deals, you had to ask a ton of questions. A lot of questions about what are they doing in digital marketing? How are they doing it? Their biggest pain points, desires, goals, responsibilities. Like you can't customize a 7-8 figure digital solution strategy without having all of those questions asked. Any tips for becoming, because you had mentioned you have to become great at listening. If you're not a world-class listener, you will not make it in sales. How do we become a world-class listener? Because now that we know the secret, it's like, how does the audience execute this secret? So how to ask great questions, how to be great at listening, and let's share that with the audience. How do they do that in your words?
Yeah, you have to do things that give you muscle memory. One of my buddies, Todd Spiker, unbelievable, just world-class salesperson. Yeah. He told me one day,
Todd is a client of mine, Todd at Harte Hanks, right?
Yeah,
or was
Todd
it
Spiker. Yeah. Now I think he's at Accenture. But he told me a long time ago, because he was really good at asking questions, listening. I said, how do you do that? And he said that he reads 2 hours a day. And I looked at him, I said, how do you find time? You got 3 kids, you got this, you got that. And he said, I make time. And it doesn't have to be a business book. It can be a nonfiction book. It could be a fiction book. It could be whatever. But I found that reading is a great way to learn. When some people love reading the New York Times every morning on their tablet or phone. I like to read a book, and it can be anything. So I actually just started on a new book right now about 1980s comedy movies in the 1980s, and how John Belushi, Chevy Chase, Eddie Murphy changed the way that we watch movies today. And I love it. It's great, but there's actually some aspects that I'm learning about how these artists do things a certain way, and maybe I can apply some of that to how I run a business. As silly as that sounds, but I find a lot of things that I find the more that I'm working on exercising my brain by reading. Podcasts are good. Don't get me wrong. I love podcasts. I listen to a ton of podcasts, but I love to just have a book and go through an hour before I go to bed, or crank out 30 minutes if I get a break at work out of that. And I find that really helps in getting me exercising the way of staying inquisitive and staying curious.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wait, how do you know Todd? Did you work with him at Harte Hanks, or where at?
Yeah, Aberdeen Group, and then we got acquired by Harte Hanks. So I met him at the Aberdeen Group, and he was a top performer. And I used to always take him out for coffee or buy him a beer and say, "Just what do you do?" And he wasn't afraid to give me his sales secrets, like you're asking me today. What was his sales secret? So he was very kind to give me some sales secrets.
You said the reading, huh?
Yeah, when he said that to me, I didn't buy it one bit, and I didn't take it on right away. And then probably about a year later, I decided, maybe I'm gonna just set a mandate that I'm gonna read 2 hours a day. A little harder now that I have 2 kids. It gets a little more complicated, but you make time to do it. It really pays off. It pays off very well.
Yeah, one of the things that I learned too from one of our sales experts on the show for listening was the mute button. So
yes.
My favorite button on my phone is the mute button. So like going through my sales discovery and my sales questions, muting myself and taking extensive notes like in Salesforce or on my phone. Like when I do these interviews, I take notes on my phone. When I'm doing pitches for sales, I've got all my discovery IMA questions in Salesforce, and I'm just filling them out ridiculously. Even though I know that the call's being recorded and transcribed, just because I know that writing out those notes, it will just like drill into you. Any other tips, David, on how to become a great listener, asking great questions before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I mean, the mute button is my favorite one too. I love the mute button. I've actually been on sales calls where I am talking, but the other person can't hear because I have the mute button on. So I would have to definitely say that is a very important one. But in terms of taking notes, I think what also really helps is to not be afraid to, when you document, to go back to your customer and then ask even more questions. Brandon, you told me that you need to create X number of leads by the end of July. I'm sorry to get you back on the phone, but I forgot to ask, why is that? What happens if you don't achieve that? So what I always try to tell sales reps, if you really want to be good at listening, don't be afraid to go back. If you surface level the discovery call, take your notes, sit down with your manager, go through the notes. And if you find that you didn't dig deep enough, don't be afraid to call the prospect up on the phone again and just say, "Hey, if you got one quick second here, I forgot to ask you this question." And that builds confidence too, to go back after you just spent time with the customer or potential customer and now asking for more time. So it actually builds confidence. Yeah. It's like anything else. If you go to the gym and you skip a step, you can always go back the next day. You can do the same thing in sales. So don't be afraid to go back and recognize that you made a mistake and, fix it.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, like you said, you just got to ask the question leading up to an outcome. Just get ahead of it and just ask, which is critical. But I really appreciate it, David. Thank you so much for taking the time today. Lastly for the show, where can the audience follow you, learn from you, connect with you for more?
So my Twitter handle is ddonlan, DDONLAN. I always post the best competitive intelligence information on my Twitter account. LinkedIn, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to accept your LinkedIn. I do get bombarded, but so if I don't accept it right away, maybe write a little note about the show today, and I'll be happy to accept it. But I try to post as much information about that. But also, if there's anything that I should be looking at, I'm always interested to learn more about new tech capabilities out there, new concepts, whatever. Don't be afraid to send me a link and say, hey, maybe you should check out this article or this ebook or whatever. I'm always looking to figure out how I can, innovate the way I sell or innovate the way I lead a sales team here. So don't be afraid to send me anything.
Awesome, man. Well, David, thank you so much for sharing your top secret on the show, all the sales secrets that you've learned listening. If you're not a world-class listener, you will not make it in sales. You have to be great at listening, inquisitive, curious, and not afraid to ask the hard questions. I really appreciate you sharing that. Appreciate you sharing how to go from 100 customers to 15,000 at HubSpot. We learned at Aberdeen, the Boston, across everything. Audience, go connect with David Donlan, David Donlan on LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it. And for everyone tuning in, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Order a copy of the book at secretsalesbook.com, secretsalesbook.com, and you can tune into iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud. It's everywhere. Just search Secret Sales Book or Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, and you'll find it. And enjoy more episodes every week, Monday and Thursdays. So stay tuned in for more. Thank you.